Creepy organ donation. Brain death, not a scientific fact.
For an organ donation, what happens is that the living, beating heart and living organs are taken from a living, dead person. This procedure is even performed under anesthesia because the dead react to the pain of the operation similarly to living people. The pulse speeds up, blood pressure changes, hormones are released, and involuntary movement happens. Spooky for doctors. That is why the hypothetical corpse is partially anesthetized. In Switzerland, this is even mandatory. Brain-dead women can give birth to children. Brain-dead men can have erections. Brain-dead persons can show reactions to outer stimuli. Movements of arms and legs are possible.
Brain death is not a scientific fact. It is not a medical diagnosis. Dr. Robert Trog, American pediatrician. Brain death doesn't exist at all. It's a fiction of transplant medicine. Professor Franco Rest, German researcher on death and ethics.
In 1996, Dr. Zieger reported to the Health Committee of the German Parliament that coma patients clearly react to external events and social stimuli, such as visits from relatives. The brain dead are warm, the metabolism works. Brain-dead patients combat infections and injuries, for example, through fever. They produce and excrete excrement. The brain-dead have to be fed, cared for, monitored, tested, and supplied with medication so that they do not die. Brain-dead are resuscitated if necessary. Isn't that a contradiction of terms? Resuscitate the dead? The brain death criteria was introduced in 1968 expressly for the purpose of organ procurement. The nursing staff is instructed to give restless, dead patients muscle-relaxing injections so that they do not move when relatives come to bid farewell.
The removal of organs from a human being while still alive is a legally punishable homicide. In order to obtain organs that can be preserved without making oneself liable to prosecution, brain death has been declared a human death. Professor Klaus-Peter Jöns, Emeritus Head of the Institute for Religion, Sociology of the Faculty of Theology of the Humboldt University of Berlin. Organ removal is murder. Dr. David Evans, British cardiologist and lecturer.
When the body is cut open while the heart is beating, from the neck to the pubic symphysis, blood pressure, heart rate, and adrenaline rise. Also redness of the face, extensive skin redness and sweating can occur. In normal operations, these signs are considered pain reactions, but not with patients declared brain dead.
Brain death is an error and not the death of a human being. This might sound embarrassing, but it can be explained on any level of logic. Professor Dörner. As a unique and unmistakable creature, man is represented not only by his brain, but also by his body. But 97% of his body is still alive at brain death. Professor Linus Geisler, cardiologist.
Medication suppressing the rejection of new organs costs several thousand euros per year and patient. After a transplantation, lifelong medical monitoring, frequent stays in hospitals, and medication with many side effects, so-called immunosuppressants, become necessary. The medication, which can cost several thousand euros a month, switch off the immune system so that the body doesn't reject the foreign organ. From this alone, one can conclude that organ transplantation is contradictory to human nature. The body often defends itself in such a way against the serious intervention that the rejection of the foreign organ is more important to it than the preservation of the life of its own body. Taking immunosuppressive drugs drastically increases the general risk of infection. The person becomes susceptible to the smallest of infections. Fungi, bacteria, and blood clotting is reduced. The cortisone in the medication causes the body to swell. There is a large number of unreported cases of organ recipients who have an inexplicable longing for death.
The market for so-called immunosuppressants, which suppress the repulsion of the foreign organ in the receiver, is said to amount annually to 1.6 billion euros alone. The case-based rates for transplantations were between 18,000 and 215,000 euros in 2011, depending on the organ and effort. A liver, for example, costs $98,000 to $130,000, a heart between $130,000 to $160,000. The transplant and pharmaceutical market is worth billions of dollars. Richard Fuchs, non-fiction author.
60% of the supposedly brain-dead patients could regain consciousness. McKinley was declared brain-dead and his parents decided to donate his organs. But suddenly the 13-year-old boy moved his hand and then his feet. The brain-dead boy awakened from his coma. Anya Levy, who was declared brain-dead, also woke up from her coma and became healthy again. She too felt the nurses' touches as they stuck a needle into her and inserted a cannula into her neck. She heard the others talking about her, the doctors who seemed convinced that she was brain dead and suggested to her husband to prepare for her funeral. But she was still there. Colleen Burns even woke up during her own organ removal. Doctors mistakenly pronounced her dead with irreversible brain damage. 56-year-old Glory Cruz also fully recovered from her brain death. Her husband delayed switching off the devices. Rosemary Kerner's ex-husband woke up from his brain death. He insulted the doctors, calling them all fools because they had put him in a refrigerator in the basement. He was then pulled out again by totally hectic doctors, and a doctor cut his neck. Without anesthesia or painkillers, they operated on him again. The head doctor of the ward confirmed that this had happened. How can a dead person see what is happening to him? Why can a dead person feel pain? The doctor assured Karina's relatives that there was no hope for this girl, and almost in the same breath she asked if the family would be willing to donate Karina's organs. But then Karina suddenly started breathing by herself again. Awakening from the coma, she signals her father, "I'm alive." The parents of Violetta from Poland did not accept the diagnosis of brain death and did not give permission to remove her organs. Violetta woke up, recovered, and is now married.